Buddhism, with all of its vehicles, I'm coming to understand better, is actually seems somewhat similar to Sufism or maybe overlapping because of how it tends particularly to the individual depending on which vehicle they should be in and where they're at with their journey. Is Sufism supposed to be more efficient in learning than other traditions? Is the difference that it's more efficient in getting to where you need to go?
There's different ways to define efficient in a process such as this, and let me try and explain that as best as I can. One can go for waking up over everything, right? That's what I did. So you don't care what you have to do, you do it. It doesn't matter the tradition, because and that becomes clear as you're working sincerely that there's only one God, right? And that's not news. And even the Buddhists, agree that there's one reality, and that reality is indistinguishable from Buddha nature, and so it's singular. And so it is in the Abrahamic traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now, with regard to how they treat their students, I think the major difference is that in Islam there is no monkery, and in Buddhism there most certainly is. And by virtue of the nature of their the environments, the Tibetan Buddhists at least were isolated, and so their methods are, and they were isolated in a place where there was no color, up in the snow, in the mountains of Tibet, and so they have a very colorful and a very well thought out program. But yes, they do at least divide folks into two groups and try and steer them towards the lesser vehicle or the greater vehicle, or in some cases not to be Buddhist at all. I've seen the Dalai Lama many times say that the world has enough Buddhists. What we need is more kind people. So the Buddhists have the nuns and the monks. They don't have the kind of overt dogma that you see in Islam or Christianity. Instead, they try and get the person to see the through logic and reason and rationality that which is obvious in retrospect, and obviously rational in retrospect, and reasonable again in retrospect. So, and there, let's say a young monk does wake up in the Mahayana, and from there he would begin his formal studies into making it to bodhisattva territory and perhaps beyond. In Sufism, they believe that wisdom should be instilled immediately, and that what enlightenment consists of, in addition to being awakened, is to being wise and awakened. And there's several reasons for this combo. The Taoists also revere it as well. So in Sufism, there's much more attention paid to the development of the moral, the ethical, the interpersonal, the all of the major issues of an ethical, a moral, an upright life, and good judgment, and a deep understanding of the frailties and vulnerabilities of the human mind, regardless of how disciplined. And so they now I'm speaking from as an outsider and a visitor to them both, but I would say that the Buddhists rely more on the Buddha, his teachings, and the absolute radicalness of their findings to the unprepared mind. And they develop the wisdom later. I think the Hindus also, I'm going to use that word as a generality. I hate to, but let's just say using it as a general term, the Hindus, and we'll say that they also don't have the emphasis on wisdom in the real world, of being in the world, acting in the world, helping the world, that the Sufis and highly evolved Christians and Buddhists do also. It's just where the emphasis is. So one is a monastic tradition. From the East, that would be Buddhism in India, China, Vietnam, Bhutan, Korea, Japan, and other places I'm not thinking of right now. And then you have the Abrahamic religions, Malaysia is Muslim, much of India is Muslim, Pakistan's Muslim, parts of Tibet, I imagine, are also Muslim. And, they're both, in the case of the Muslims, they're facing the onslaught of the Chinese anti-religion machine. And then you got to say, for the Chinese, they know what they're doing when they're going to overtake somebody and destroy their heritage and claim it for their own. God bless them, period. So those are a few thoughts on the surface of it. Every genuine spiritual tradition has somewhere, the religious tradition, has somewhere hidden within it a spiritual core somewhere. And sometimes the people, the members of the church, don't even suspect it. This is very true in Protestant and Catholic churches, but it's there. And so I hope that's helpful.